All right, welcome to this final part of the module on setting priorities and goals. You have gotten to the end. This is the last video. We're going to be talking about how to schedule in our priorities. So we've been talking about a 6-step process in prioritizing. We started with looking at the overall topic in your life or your ministry that you want to prioritize, and then identifying the most important goals related to that topic. What are you hoping to achieve? Thirdly, brainstorming possibilities of all the things you could be doing and spending your time on. Fourthly, assessing the potential value and impact of all those things you could be doing and how well they contribute to your end goals. And then fifth, making a decision about how you want to prioritize, what things are really the most important, and deciding how much time and who should do what when. And then six, we're on this final step here of setting priorities and goals, which is to schedule it in. Whatever you decided in step 5 as your priorities and how much time you want to spend on what and by whom, step 6 is about scheduling it in, actually getting it into your calendar. So what does it look like to schedule it in? It really just means we take a look at what we just identified as our biggest priorities of what we want to do and how we want to be spending our time, and how long we think those things will take, and who should be doing them. And we want to put them on our actual calendar. Now, I'm not sure what kind of calendars you may use. You basically have an option of using a printed physical calendar or an electronic calendar or both. And both are great. I especially like a printed calendar in a group team situation, a ministry situation, when there are some general types of activities that need to happen on a daily, weekly basis, and we want everybody on the team to be aware of what happens on what days or who in general does what on which days. It's really helpful to have that on a big calendar on the wall. The things that are pretty general, that are pretty repeatable on a daily, weekly basis that we want everyone to know about. Great idea to put those things that you've blocked off on your calendar up on a wall on a printed calendar. I also love to use an electronic calendar, so I'd highly encourage you to do that if you don't already. And you can set up a calendar, of course, so that your team can share it, and you can all be looking at the same activities that you've scheduled for the team. So they can have their own private calendar and events, but they can also have the team calendar and events, and they can see what's going on and who needs to be doing what for the ministry. So make sure you're trying to use both types of calendars as it makes sense. So I look here on this slide at the things that I had identified, activities I had identified for myself, of what I wanted to be doing and how much or how often I wanted to be doing those things. And basically now, I just get out my calendar and start to try to put these things on the calendar. Where would it make the most sense that I spend the time doing this? So it's one thing to say, twice a month I want to consult for other ministries, but it's another thing to figure out where would that go on my calendar? Which days, on which months would I do that? And it's another thing to say I'd like to coach 3 people a week, have 3 coaching appointments a week. That's great. Do I want to actually block something off my calendar where I know I'm free and available for coaching times on those days and times? That's what I'd recommend, is trying to actually pick those things and put them on your calendar. And come up with a predictable daily and weekly calendar of when you would typically do what type of activities on any given day during the week. Let me give you an example again from my personal calendar. Here we see some of my top priorities: consulting for other ministries, coaching others, doing some online leadership teachings, as well as developing some ALLC resources. Those were kind of my top most important priorities. And obviously my priority 1, things I wanted to spend more time on in a given week. So here in this chart on the bottom right, you see an example of what I created as a standard weekly calendar for myself and what I wanted to be doing on any given day and during the day. So you'll see here on Mondays, I decided I was going to set aside Mondays for doing and working on webinar teachings in general. And on Tuesdays, I was going to be working on developing resources. On Wednesday, I was going to be trying to commit more of my time to my ministry to ALLC, the Asia Leaders Learning Community, and things that they needed me to be helping with. And Thursday and Friday, I was going to dedicate more to consulting and coaching activities. So right away, you can see I tried to look at my priorities and put them into my weekly calendar of what my primary focus each day was going to be. But throughout the day, there's obviously lots of things you have to do. For example, I start and end my day trying to get through all the emails that come in. So I try to set aside a block of time every morning and at the end of the workday to get through all those emails and respond to everybody I need to respond to. Those aren't necessarily on my weekly priorities, but they're things that I need to do on a daily basis. But beyond that, I also scheduled in, like, for example, on Monday, I have prepping for the week as a block of time in the morning, and in the afternoon, working on webinar preparations and teaching preparations and following up with people. So that was how I could put some of my weekly priorities into Monday, right? Tuesday, in the morning, I have time set aside, blocked off for developing resources, all right? That's actually my third priority, as you can see. But I picked one day a week, just a few hours where I'd spend on developing resources on my third priority. In the afternoon on Tuesday, though, I blocked off time for consulting and coaching prep. So that those two relate to my first two priorities. I blocked off time to work on those Tuesday afternoon, as well as Wednesday afternoon, and almost all of Thursday and Friday, I blocked off for coaching and consulting activities because they're my number one priority. And on Wednesday morning, you'll see I blocked off a lot of the morning to work on ALLC work, administrative work, writing articles, and working on the website. So I basically took my weekly priorities and decided which days and at what times did I want to block off on my weekly calendar to make sure that I've got time to work on those priorities. And then, of course, on any given week or on any given day, I'm going to have to switch those things around because things will come up and say, oh, normally I did my coaching and consulting on Thursday, Friday, but I've had somebody request coaching and they can only do it on a Monday. So I'm going to have to swap with what I would normally do on a Thursday or Friday with something that I've got scheduled on a Monday. And I intentionally make that swap on my calendar. So I don't replace something on my calendar and never do what I normally would do that day. I replace it with something else on the calendar. I swap things around. And I do that intentionally so that I know I'm not scheduling over my priorities. I start by scheduling in my priorities on any given week. And then when new things come up, when unexpected requests and emergencies come up, I can intentionally go back and look at my calendar and say, okay, how do I want to choose to respond in this case? Do I just say yes? Do I replace it with something else on a different day? How can I make sure that I'm continuing to focus on what I know my priorities are? And that's how scheduling it in works. Whatever is most important to you in life, put it onto your calendar now. Because if you don't, when the emergencies of everyday life and the challenges and requests of everyday life, when they come up, they're going to squeeze out anything and everything that you would have wanted to do otherwise that's supposedly a priority to you. If you don't already put it on your calendar, it's likely to get squeezed out. So put it on there so that you can make conscious decisions and choices if you ever want to make a change to those things. All right, again, congratulations on getting to the end of this module on setting priorities and goals. As a quick review, we talked about a 6-step process, starting by identifying the topic to prioritize, then looking at your goals and what are the goals related to that topic that you want to achieve, then brainstorming all the possibilities of things you could be working on, fourthly, assessing the value of all those possibilities and which things are really the most important that help you to achieve your end goals. Fifth, deciding then what you're going to do, when, how much time it'll take, and who's going to do it. And sixth, like we just did, scheduling it in. And as you look and think about this 6-step process, you're probably going to realize this isn't hard. This isn't difficult. Anybody can do this. And absolutely, anybody can do it. You can do it. And you probably do it sometimes. But the question really is, strategic leaders prioritize on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis. If you want to be a strategic leader, you need to build in these thought processes and this approach to prioritization into your normal daily routine. This needs to become a habit that when faced with lots of work to do, that you naturally step back and think through a process like this to plan out exactly what's most important to you and make sure those are the things you focus on. That's what a strategic leader does.